السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Jazakumullah everyone for joining today. Today we are starting something a little bit new. We are trying out a YouTube link and trying to go live through YouTube. Inshallah, this is also successful and will help us move forward after Ramadan in our plans. In today's Daras, Alhamdulillah, we've covered so many topics now. We are on our 19th topic on top of 3 question and answer sessions. Alhamdulillah, we've covered extensively different topics relating to different aspects of Islam. Inshallah, today we'll be talking about where does sin come from? Something which is quite interesting and something which we can all relate to and try to learn from. This is directly from guidance from Khalifatul Masih Sani Razitullah Anhu in his book Way of the Seekers. But just before that, on Monday, there were a few questions, 2 in particular, which we didn't manage to answer due to the time. So I just wanted to go over those questions very quickly, just to answer them, because we don't want to leave anything out, and try to answer all the questions which you have been sending. So we have 2 questions. We'll just answer them very briefly, very quickly, and then inshallah we can move on to today's dars. So the first question which you have sent is, can we get let me go to another question before that. Yeah, so question 10, this is the first question. What can we do if we drop the Holy Quran by mistake? One example is in Pakistan, people used to weigh the Quran and donate rice to the poor when they dropped the Quran. So let's just go through this bit by bit. The first and foremost thing which we must always remember is what the Holy Prophet ﷺ said. He said, those who honor the Quran will be honored in heaven. And this is something which is really important, because it really tells us that there is no limit to our love that we can show to the Holy Quran. And the more we give it respect, the more we give it honor, the more Allah is pleased with us. And for that reason, Allah the Almighty hasn't made any ruling that if we drop the Holy Quran by mistake, then we must pay some sort of punishment or some sort of fine. Because as you know, Allah the Almighty has made religion easy for us and not difficult. And this is something which depends from person to person. Allah the Almighty has made us weak beings. We are susceptible to making mistakes. And for that reason, Allah the Almighty understands if we do by mistake make a mistake, such as dropping the Holy Quran. And as we know, we have a special connection with this holy book because it is the word of Allah. And so when it does drop, there are a few ways you can go about it. But just for one example, which I've put out, is when we are fasting, something which we are doing at the moment. When we are fasting and we eat something through forgetfulness, Allah the Almighty isn't angry with us. He isn't upset with us, and He tells us, carry on with your fast. You don't need to break it because it was a mistake and you forgot. And in the same way, the same rule applies to this scenario as well. But if it was done intentionally, this is the other side. If we intentionally break our fast, Allah the Almighty says that you must fast for 60 days. And so that's almost the recompense of breaking something or doing something on purpose. On top of that, there are some things you can do. You can ask Allah for forgiveness to not do it again, and give even more love and respect to the Holy Quran. So these are some things which you can do. And one point to understand is that cultural habits do not apply to any rules of Islamic teachings, but if they are good, then you should do them. So as I said, there is no ruling on what you have to do, as it depends from person to person. For example, someone who is poor and he's he is told you are forced to give a certain amount of money, then it will be difficult for him, and his religion would be made difficult for him because he made a mistake. But there are things that we can do, which you don't have to do, but are very good to do. So you can give sadaqah just out of regret that you made a mistake and you won't do it again, and you pray to Allah that it won't happen again. And in the same way, pray istighfar, because when you pray istighfar, you're also praying for the future, that it doesn't happen in the future, and you learn from this mistake that you made. So again, cultural habits, some are very good, just like the example that was given. You don't have to weigh the Quran, but the act of giving sadaqah is very pleasing to Allah the Almighty. So this was a short answer to this question. Another question, question 11. Can we get Quran from non-Ahmadis? Because I've seen a mini Quran as a gift for someone. Or does it have to be from Ahmadis? So again, it's a very interesting question. The simple answer is, if the Quran is in plain Arabic, then it is fine. Because as you know, the Arabic can never be changed and never will be altered. So we are reading directly the words of the Holy Quran. The places where we must be careful is when we buy translations of the Holy Quran from non-Ahmadis. And that's where we need to be very careful, especially. Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam came to give us the true and perfect meaning of the Holy Quran, and that's what we should really focus on. And I'll just present a few examples of our translation and non-Ahmadi translation, and we'll see from that how our thoughts and our beliefs can be shaped. And that's why we must always read the books, the translations of the Judgement. So some examples here. So if we look at this verse, وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ. And this is a Judgement translation, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is only a messenger. Verily, all messengers have passed away before him. But if we look into the non-Ahmadi translation, they have translated this word khalat as other messengers have passed away, whereas we have translated as all messengers have passed away. And this is, as I said, this can alter our beliefs, because the reason they wrote other is because, as you know, they believe Jesus hasn't died, and they believe Jesus will come back, which is why they've said other messengers, not all messengers. Again, in another example, ما كان محمد أبا أحد من رجالكم ولكن رسول الله وخاتم النبيين. And this is something very famous, which we all know. And this again is from the Ahmadiyya translation. And we have translated the word khatam as he is the seal of the prophets. But if we look at the translation of non-Ahmadis, they translate Khatam al-Nabiyyin as last of the prophets. And so this again is a very important aspect of why we should read Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat translation, because it gives us the true meaning, and this is the meaning which Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam came and gave. And just from this word, whole new beliefs are created, and people become very stubborn, and they don't want to understand other translations. So that's why it's so important. Just to pick up this word and give you other examples from the Holy Quran, because I think it's very important and it's a very discussed topic, especially from Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam. Here they've translated Khatam as last, but in other places they have translated Khatam, the same word, as seal, just as we have, as we say in Surah Baqarah, Khatam Allahu ala kulubihim wa ala sam'ihim. And as you see in this example, they have translated as Allah has set a seal upon their hearts. Other examples of Khatam, we literally said the same thing in this verse. Allah has set a seal on their hearts. That's exactly the same translation. And another example in chapter 83, verse 27, Khitamuhu miskun. The sealing of it will be with musk. So again, khatama or khatama has been translated as seal, but just in the previous verse, because of what they are told and what their Quran says, they have translated it as last. So that's the real answer to reading a non-Ahmadi translations Quran, but if you just want to read plain Quran, then it's totally fine. So with that, these are the two questions which I wanted to answer, which was left over from last Monday. So now we'll go into Darus. So today we're going to cover another interesting topic. Where does sin come from? So we'll just discuss this topic quickly, and we'll keep today's Darus nice and short, inshallah. So what is sin? Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Sani Razitalan who said, sin is an activity which renders the human soul sick and incapable of viewing the face of God. Difficulties have to be encountered in the journey which the soul undertakes as it moves towards the purpose of its creation. So that's what sin is. Sin stops you from making that connection with Allah the Almighty. When you know something is wrong, you have chosen the other side instead of going towards what Allah the Almighty wants you to do. But on the flip side, what are good deeds? So he says that good deeds are deeds which bring a person enough strength to join the onward march in the hereafter, and which makes the soul capable of viewing the face of the Lord. So one example which is given, doctors cannot point to a single perfectly healthy body. A good man is one who has done enough good deeds, both physically and spiritual, to be capable of viewing the face of God. And this is exactly how Allah the Almighty has made us. He has not made us perfect. He knows that we are susceptible to making mistakes, to committing sins. But He has also given us this option of whether you should commit that sin or do something good. And if we have that evil intention in our mind and we convert it into something good, Allah is pleased with that. So we must always do much more good deeds than bad deeds, and this is what Allah will judge us on in the hereafter, and this is what will connect us with Allah the Almighty. So there are 6 different aspects which Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Sani who has highlighted of where sin comes from. So the first aspect is ignorance, and there are 12 more sources which come from ignorance, and just to read a few of them. Greed. Too much greed blinds a person to many important matters. Intense need, bad health, excessive fear, excessive love, excessive desire, and excessive lack of desire. So all these things, ignorance can be translated into many different ways, but lack of knowledge in something can cause you to commit sin. Not knowing something is wrong, or not knowing what the good of that bad thing is, will commit you to committing that sin. So that's ignorance. Another aspect is social contact. We are born as imitators. We follow what we see. Sometimes we tend to look at something and we just want to do it without weighing and considering the consequences of what we are doing. These social influences include the influence of parents and other relations, playmates, teachers, social institutions, and customs. And this is something which is really important because we all can relate to it. We know when something is wrong in the house. We know that we are doing something wrong, but we still do it. But we don't realize that people watching us are also taking this in. And this has been a custom from the beginning of time, where someone has started something and they just follow it, and prophets come and tell them that, you know, your forefathers were wrong in doing this, you should stop this. But they are so engrossed in it, and they are so used to committing their life in this way that they just want to continue following it. And so that is what social contact is. Bad habits. And one of the worst bad habits which Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Sani has highlighted is lying. As you know, lying is said this is the source of all evils. So when we make a promise to Allah the Almighty and then we break it, this is one of the hardest and worst kind of sins that we can do. For example, we promise Allah we will stop smoking, but then continue to smoke. So again, this is another place where sin is originated from. So remember, we are discussing where does sin come from. So these are all the different aspects, the 6 aspects which Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Sani who has highlighted. So we've spoken about ignorance, we've spoken about social contact, social influence, and now we're talking about bad habits. So these are things which are very important to remember. And if we are ever in these situations, we must try to really make the right decision. And if we do promise anything to Allah the Mighty, we must try to stick to that as much as possible. This is another condition which we can all relate to is laziness and lack of organizing time. One who takes big jobs lightly. When we have so much free time, we do not use it in the right way. Instead of thinking about Allah, our attention is taken away. And now we, as you know, during the lockdown, we have so much more time to each other. We have so much time to think, so much time to do things which we could never do before. But are we using that time in the right way? Are we not really, for example, Ramadan has come, are we really taking Ramadan seriously? Are we making use of this time, or are we taking it lightly? Are we losing out on these blessings? And one example which is given is during the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, when a sincere companion was all but ready to go to the battlefield, but he made no preparation for it. He had persuaded himself that when the time came, he would be able to join the party with ease. He continued to leave his preparations to the end. The result was he was left behind and could not join the army. And so this stems from laziness, from not organizing his time properly. And we can all relate to this. We can all understand this scenario, because every day we're going through this. Every day we try to organize our time to go and do namaz. Sometimes we take it lightly. We quickly rush into our car. There's traffic, there's this, there's that. By the time we get to the masjid, namaz is almost over and we've almost lost out. Same way when you're preparing for exams, you think it's such an easy exam, I'll be okay, I'll prepare one night before. But when you get to the exam, it's something which you didn't think would be as hard as it was. So again, laziness can also make us fall into sin, and not preparing properly can also make us fall into sin. So this is something which we should keep in mind and try to be punctual in everything in life. Lack of comparative judgment. Out of two alternative courses of action, a person cannot decide which is the better of the two. So again, when sin is presented before you and something good is presented before you, sometimes we are stuck in the middle. We don't know which one to do, or we're not strong enough. We don't have the willpower to actually choose the good over the bad or over the evil. It also becomes a question for such people how different emotions are to be applied to different situations, as is made by two parties. But how far does one go with one party and how far with the other? For example, a man loves his wife but also loves his mother. Both have a similar title to love. This gives rise to difficult situations which are largely self-created. So again, this example is quite beautiful, because we love our family members, we love our partners. Sometimes we are stuck in a situation: should we listen to our mother? Should we listen to our wife? And largely this causes friction, and we are put in a situation where we don't know what to do, where we don't have the wisdom to decide which one is the right call to make. So again, we need to really understand and try to look at both sides and make the right decision in the best way. Similarly, many people become convinced of the truth of the Promised Messiah ﷺ, but hesitate to join the fold. They say they owe allegiance to another saint whom they do not want to leave. These difficulties are due to an incapacity to judge. Again, so this is the ultimate example which you can really understand this aspect of where sin comes from. And Khalifa Sani has given this example of Hazrat Masih, and all prophets, in fact. All prophets came, as I said before, they came to warn people to not follow the ways of their forefathers, to accept the messenger which Allah the Almighty has sent. But people don't accept it just for the reason that their family members are following something else, so they feel that they have to follow that thing as well. And so this causes you to lose out on blessings, and also is a sin because you've rejected someone sent by Allah the Almighty. So again, something to ponder over, something to think about, and something to apply in our daily life. I think this is the sixth and final point of the 6 stages of where sin comes from. So as a Khalifa Masih Sani gives the example that if there were 9 bad people who have evil tendencies, and we're talking about invisible influences, if there were 9 bad people who have evil tendencies and 1 good person, the good person will start to behave badly also. And this is something which is highly understood, and something which the Quran has exhorted again and again, that kunu ma'as sadiqin, that part company with the righteous, with the people who are truthful, with the people who are like-minded to you, and don't be amongst those people who cause you to be influenced in a negative way. So Hazrat Masih Maud gives a very beautiful example of this, and he says that this reminds me of a Sikh student who had great affection for the Promised Messiah. On one occasion, he sent a messenger to him through Hazrat Maulvi Nuruddin Sahib Razit Anhu that his mind was being affected by agnostic thinking. The Promised Messiah suggested that this young man should change his seat in the classroom and sit away from his classmates who sat close to him. The change proved the cure for his agnosticism. No argument had passed between them, but unexpressed thoughts were being communicated in some mysterious way. So again, this gives us an understanding of invisible influences, someone who just naturally is the way he is, and this can have an impact on other people. So, and this happens a lot when we are in our workplace, when we are at school, wherever we are studying, and the person we are studying with, sometimes what they're doing is good, but just their ideology, just their way of thinking influences us in negative ways. So this example of moving your chair, moving the place where you're sitting to sit next to someone else, can change and alter the whole way you're thinking, the whole way you are studying, the whole way you are going about your entire life. So that's why in yesterday's Daras, we spoke about how parents should be very vigilant on their children, on how the friends that they have, and how they are being influenced. And if you see any negative tendencies in them, then you must question it, and you must really pay attention to it, and try to get to the bottom of the problem and try to find the solution. So this again is another solution by the Promised Messiah ﷺ. So this was a short, quick daras on where sin comes from. So the 6 places of where sin comes from. So there's a dua which is mentioned in the Way of the Seekers that Hazrat Khalifa Masih Sani Razit Anhu has said, and it is the dua to save us from sin. Shield us, O Allah, against Satan, and keep Satan away from whatever thou might bestow upon us. So that is the last message. Inshallah, may Allah Ta'ala enable us to be kept away from sin. As you know, in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that Satan is locked up in shackles during Ramadan. But Ramadan is also coming to an end now, so we must prepare ourselves. We use this month to prepare ourselves for the coming months. So when Ramadan does finish, make your first actions and your actions after that good. Don't just fall back into your old habits. Don't just start committing sins. Abstain from them and think about, you always have an option. You always have an option to do good over evil all the time, and you must always continuously think of Allah the Almighty in every situation and think, is Allah going to be pleased with my action? Is Allah going to be happy with what I'm about to do or not? And if the answer is no, then you should try your best. You should try to find that willpower which Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Sani has spoken about, that you must build your willpower to overcome that influence and to overcome that temptation to guide you away from Allah the Almighty. So this is the true way of how we should go about when sin is presented in front of us. So may Allah Ta'ala enable us to be saved from sin and help us to always do good in the right and best way. Jazakumullah everyone for listening. Keep everyone in your prayers. Just a few more days of Ramadan, so make sure you're praying a lot. And the 27th night was last night. You also have the opportunity on the 29th night, so keep praying in these nights where Allah the Almighty comes closest to us and remembers and hears our prayers, and inshallah He will answer all the prayers that we are praying in these days. So may Allah Ta'ala enable us to gain full blessings from these last days of Ramadan. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa barik wa sallam.